Shut up and sit down.
Hi guys, it's Dodgy from Big Mech's Workshop and Paint Studio, and today we're going to be painting a Necron warrior. I've gone ahead and primed in black with the usual Vallejo black primer. I'm going to go ahead and cover the entire model besides the gun in gun grey by model colour. You want to water this down a little bit, as metallics have a tendency to clump up and obscure details. So I've watered this down, and it will take about 2 coats. Doesn't matter if you can see some of the black through on the first coat, just let it dry, do a second coat. Like I've said in other videos, you always want to build that up in layers. And once that's dry, we are going to go ahead and use gunmetal, which is a bit out of focus, which I apologise for, and it seems a bit bizarre to paint silver straight over the other silver, but this is just going to make the colours a little bit brighter, because we're going to add a couple of washes to this as well. So we want to start off with a pretty bright silver. Again, a couple of layers of this colour and good to go. Then what we're going to do is use GW's Null Oil and cover all of the metallic bits we've just painted. You don't want this to pull up too much. What I tend to do is I tend to put it in the recesses and then clean my brush off and drag the oil out of the recesses onto the rest of it. That way you're never putting too much on there. Basically using my Necron here as a palette for my oil. You want to make sure it's spread nicely and you get into all those details and all those grooves, because that's where you want your shading. Then we're going to go back and highlight all the parts that stick out and all the main detail parts with gunmetal again. Watered down, this is going to bring that shine back, but because of the layers of silver we've done and the oil, we're going to get nice steady transitions. So you want to make sure you get all the top edges of things, all the top parts, shoulders, back of the head, the back of the legs, anywhere where the light would hit. And I'm using I think it's an army painter brush at this point. Doesn't really matter, any size, 1 or even a 0 would suffice for this. Then we're going to do the Null Oil again, but only in the very dark areas, pulling everything back down, because what happens when you highlight these silvers after a Null Oil wash is they're really shiny and everything else is matte, and that's going to pull all those together, as you can see. Then we're using Agrax Earthshade by GW to do all the bolts and all the grooves where rust would build up. Again, very small amounts, and pull it from the direction where you want it faded to the place where you want the most pigment and most colour to show up. Once that's dry, we're going to clean up this gun, because in the first steps we get... no, we're not going to clean up the gun. That's next. This is Necron Compound by GW, which is a dry paint, and I'm using a GW small brush. Be very sparing with this, even more so than a normal dry brush. We're just trying to hit those sharp edges because I didn't want to do an edge highlight on the armour. Then we're going to use the black again to clean up the gun. Obviously that's the right order. You don't want to do all your gun parts and then go ahead and do a compound, because you end up with compound on the black parts. We're just going to cover all that again so there's no silver parts where there shouldn't be. Give it a nice smooth finish. Ready for the next step, which will be Eshen Grey by GW. Now we're using a Winsor Newton Series 7 00, and just using the tip of the brush, we're running the edge of the brush against the edge of the gun with the Eshin Grey, which is how you basically do your edge highlights. This takes a bit of practice, but if you go around the entire gun, it stops that black being flat, and because the edges are there, the eyes can pick up all the details, and it breaks the part down so it's easier for the eyes to see. Then we're going to do the gun barrel, or the... is it a gun barrel? Because it's just a beam of energy, I'm not 100% sure what that is. But we're going to use Caliban green on it. And we're also going to use Caliban green on that pipe, and all the little detail parts on that gun as well. If anyone knows what that part's actually called, leave us a comment, because I'm curious now. Then we're going to use Mechanicus Standard Grey by GW to edge highlight again, but with this edge highlight it's a second edge highlight, and we're just going to do the sharpest points of the edges. So you've got your Eshin Grey underneath, and on the sharpest and highest points we're just going to do the Mechanicus Grey, and that will draw the eye even more to the details on the weapon, so it's not just a block of black, which is not what you want if you want things to stand out. Then we're going to use Warpstone Glow by GW and the Winsor Newton Series 7, start picking out even more of the details everywhere where we did Caliban green, because we're going to do some OSL and lighting effects on this. Take your time, really small amounts of paint. I also can't recommend this brush enough. It's Winsor Newton Series 7, great set of brushes. This is really watered down, as you can see, and is done in a couple of layers as usual. Just start wherever you want the least amount of paint and pull to wherever you want the most amount of paint. And because it's watered down, the pigment will move around very easily and very smoothly. And then I went and used Warpstone Glow in the airbrush because I was just being lazy, and we want to do some OSL effects. You can do the OSL effects with a brush using that glazing technique and watering it down, building it up in layers. I was trying to get this video done and the day was clocking on, so I switched back to the airbrush. And when you're doing OSL with an airbrush, you want your darkest colour to be the most spread out, and you don't want too much of it on. It's a very subtle transition. You don't have to worry about the overspray on these because that's how the OSL works. Angling with the angle that you shoot the airbrush at is also quite important, because that will be the direction that the light will go. Then we're going to go ahead and use Moot Green by GW, watered down, and we spread it out before. Now we're going to try and do a smaller amount of surface area with the airbrush, leaving some of the Warpstone Glow behind. And as you can see, it's starting to look like it's heated or it's glowing. You want to take your time with this, because if you spray too much on, it's just going to ruin the effect. You're going to end up with too much paint and just one block colour. I then used Moot Green and Off-White by Model Colour. It didn't look this white on camera, so I did an extra step after this to tone it down a little bit. But yeah, that just wants to be in the middle where the glow is. So you start from your furthest dimension, and as it gets lighter and lighter, you just make the colours smaller and smaller. And if you have a whole unit of these guys stomping around the battlefield like this, they're very eye-catching. And again, I've mixed up Off-White and Moot Green, but put a lot more Moot Green in it this time, and it's more of a yellow tone at this point because the white's showing from underneath. Just, you know, there's plenty of ways of doing the OSL, layering it up. I've seen people do that, where they'll put a high tone in the middle, then go over it with a mid-tone, and that'll blend those together as well. And once you've done the OSL on him, all that's left to do is to stick him on a base. And that's it for this week's tutorial. If you liked the video, hit like. If you've got any questions, leave us a comment. And if you want to see more of our tutorials and more of our videos, hit subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys.